Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played 11 seasons for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. This is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. Come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey and a few other subjects. But Tom, today we haven't talked hockey in a while. We're going to get right into it.
Yeah, let's go.
We're going to play a game called "Does It Matter or Doesn't It?"
Okay.
Okay, and we're going to talk about some subjects here, and I just want to get your take on it because I find these all kind of interesting.
Okay.
So we all know what rivalries are about in the NHL. I mean, when you were playing, it was all about the Islanders and the Rangers.
Yeah, definitely. We hate each
So,
other. Flyers too. Yep.
Yeah. So Flyers. Yeah. So today, speaking of the Flyers, I read that, and we can't make trades now because we're in that no trade zone that we have around the holidays. But apparently, there's been speculation that the Flyers, of course, have wanted to trade James Van Riemsdyk, and he's played pretty well in a short sample size this year. And the thought is that the Pittsburgh Penguins are interesting. So does it matter if the Flyers, for them to trade Van Riemsdyk to the Penguins? Yes or no?
Ooh, that's a great question. All right, so if I'm Chuck Fletcher in Philadelphia, if I trade him to Pittsburgh, does he make a big difference on that team and make them become a winner? Does he come back and beat you now? I don't see him as that much of a difference maker, so I'm going to say it does not matter.
Yeah. No, in the old days, I think it did matter. I think you just didn't, help your, your rivals. And these guys, I mean, just to give an example, I always like to bring this up because I think it's kind of fun. When the Penguins last won the Cup, they took it to the State House.
Oh. So we're talking about trading James Van Riemsdyk. Kevin got frozen there at the State House.
They stood up on the podium and booed the Penguins when they brought the Cup in. So
who booed them?
The Penguin, the representatives who represented Philadelphia Flyers districts, that were close to Philadelphia.
There's a
so anyway, I mean, but I don't think it does matter in this case. Yeah. I think we've moved beyond that too.
Yeah, and again, he's not a real difference maker, right? Like you don't say to Pittsburgh, like, "Oh, now if you get James Van Riemsdyk, you're a favorite to win the Stanley Cup now because of that move." I don't think that's in that category. So if Pittsburgh does want him though.
Well, that's what they said. I mean, they're looking for a guy that can contribute some secondary scoring.
Okay.
And he seems like the kind of guy that could do that. They don't need him to do anything else. Just, put the puck in the net now.
Right. And Philly's looking to move him for cap space too, more.
Correct. Cap space, and just maybe get an asset for a guy that, won't be back with the team.
Right.
Okay. The second thing is tonight the Detroit Red Wings play the Washington Capitals. As everyone may or may not know, Alex Ovechkin is at 800 goals for his career. He's tied with Gordie Howe, and he's going to move past Gordie Howe. It's inevitable, and then be in second place, and then he'll only have Wayne Gretzky to chase.
Right.
However, Derek Lalonde, the Red Wings coach, said yesterday, we can't allow Ovechkin to score that goal against us on our watch. Gordie Howe played 25 years for the Red Wings.
Oh, that's right. I never thought about that.
Yeah,
right.
and that ain't right. That ain't right for Ovechkin to pass Gordie scoring a goal against the Red Wings.
Yeah.
Does it matter?
I think he's using that as a little, and I don't blame the coach for doing it too. He's using to get them a little bit fired up to say, okay, we need to put on a little bit of a show here ourselves, not let him have it. But I mean, it's the game. It's so long ago. I don't think it really matters that much. No, again, another one does not matter. But I do admire the coach for trying to do it, though. I think that's a good move.
Yeah, I think it does matter. I knew Gordie obviously, and I don't think Gordie would want the Ovi to, I think he would be so happy for Ovechkin. I do. Yeah. That's how Gordie was. Yeah. But I don't think he would like to see it done against the Red Wings. That was his team for 25 years. So I'm going to say it does matter, but I understand your point. I don't think it matters much.
That way. It's interesting about Gordie too, because he traveled around with us when we were in LA, and Wayne was trying to break his points record.
Right.
And Wayne actually had a couple of games there on the road where he didn't score any points, and it was we loved it because Gordie hanging around was fantastic. Fantastic, telling great stories and everything. So good man.
Yeah. Now, the other thing too is, we have a big celebration when NHL players play their 1,000th game. 1,000 games.
Right.
It's a lot of games.
Yeah, I saw this.
Does that really matter? Does 1,000 games really matter?
Yeah, it does. To me, it's a milestone. And you saw last night where Kane and Taves both did it on the same night.
Well, that was my next question.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it does matter. Yeah, I think that's quite an accomplishment to play 1,000 games in the National Hockey League. So I got just over 700 games in, which is fine. It's nice. It's a nice number, but something about that 1,000 just makes a big difference, I think. So yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you survive that long, I mean, let's think about this. If you play 10 seasons, don't miss a game, you're only at 800. So 12 gives you 96. So at a minimum, you got to play 13 seasons.
Yeah, and you got to be durable. You got to be durable too, right?
Really, it usually takes people longer because they get, even if you have a couple of 20-game injuries, it thinks so. You're going to play 14 or 15 years.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
in the NHL.
That's a good career. Just that number itself. Something about that 1,000. Like you guys that get to 1,000. That's a heck of a career. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I find it interesting too because there's always a ceremony. We just had one here in Detroit with David Perron, and he obviously didn't play many of those games with Detroit. In fact, only the 28 that he's played this season. But his teammates gave him, I think it was, a golf vacation, and his family can come along and go to some other things. And,
nice.
It was a big deal. And they had some of the guys who had played with him in St. Louis, Sundqvist, Fabre, who's injured. They came out on the ice with him as well, and it was a pretty big deal. And the players seem excited.
Yeah, it's just something about the way that you look at that guy, like the guy that gets 1,000 games in. The rest of his teammates look, man, well, that's quite an accomplishment, right? I think it's just that honorable thing, and really.
Yeah, I think it matters big time. Yeah. All right, now let's. We've established that 1,000 games is important, but does it matter if two teammates do it? It's happened 11 times. Is that a big deal, or is that just a coincidence?
I think it's a big deal, especially two impact players like those two guys. The things they've done in their careers together, winning the Stanley Cups, growing up together on the same team, and now having the team in the position it's in right now, where they're probably going to get traded at some point. So yeah, I think with those two guys, it really does matter because of the careers that they've had.
Yeah, I don't think it was very fitting that they lost 7-1 in that game to the New York Rangers. I mean, what the Taves and Kane are all about was success. When they showed up in 2006 with the Jonathan Taves being drafted 3rd overall, 2007 Kane going number 1 overall, the team wasn't very good. Right. And then they carried the flag to success.
Yep.
And now we've gone completely in the other end. Guys are getting traded away. They're left there, and the team is not very good.
That's the sad part. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I thought it was. It just wasn't as big. Had if they were still a good team, and I think it would have been the celebration would have been greater. Greater. So
definitely.
Okay, and here's a thing that if you're a player, and the normal goalie is situation on any team is a starter and a backup.
Mm-hmm.
The Red Wings now have 3 goalies, all 3 on the roster.
Ooh,
does it matter if you're a player? I mean, how do you feel about that?
To the rest of the team, especially when it's a young team like they've got there, most of those guys are fairly young. They're really just concentrating on their own games, right? They're just getting used to the National Hockey League. But for a goaltender, it's got to be terrible, right? Because even like practices, they have their own net, right? And now you got to have 3 guys and 2 nets. So I think it's an awkward thing. Is there a reason why they've got 3 up there?
Well, yeah, because they're afraid to send Hellberg down because they think he'll be claimed again. He's been claimed 3 times.
Okay.
So, but yeah, they picked him up because they didn't have faith in the Grand Rapids AHL goalies in case somebody had gotten hurt, and now they're kind of stuck because they really feel he'll be claimed if they send him down.
Yeah, that is, you can get away with it for a while, but man, the practices, it makes it tough on the goaltenders to really. It's got to be the one guy that says, okay, you're going to get the bulk of the game, so you're going to have your own net, and then the other 2 guys share it. But
yeah, I mean that's what's essentially happening. Uso is the number 1 goalie, and the other issue here is obviously Nedeljkovic hasn't played very well. Now he's kind of on the spot, and Hellberg, I mean. if you look at his, he came in last year, played one game, and won it for the Red Wings.
Wow.
They tried to re-sign him, but he had a better situation in Seattle, so he went there.
Oh.
But he didn't get a chance to play. They put him on waivers. Ottawa claimed him. He went to Ottawa. He won another game, and he had already won games for the Rangers too. So at that point, he's undefeated as a NHL goalie, even though he's only played 4 games.
Right.
He's 31 years old.
Right.
Then, so he goes and plays one game in Ottawa, but then they got healthy again, and they tried to send him to the minors, and Seattle reclaimed him. So now he's back to Seattle. But Seattle has the same problem. They had too many goalies. They like them. Everybody likes them.
Sure.
They tried to sneak him down to the minors, and Steve Yzerman said, nope, I don't like my situation. He's coming to Detroit. Back to Detroit he goes. And he actually had pads from last year that were kind of red pads that he had made. And so he had his friend send them from Sweden. So he's got Red Wing pads again. They think if they send him to the minors that someone might claim him, the Kings or maybe Seattle again.
I wonder how the guy's confidence is, right? Either you say, geez, everybody wants me or nobody wants me, right?
Yeah, well, I think everybody wants him, but, yeah, I mean, he played one game with Detroit. I didn't think he was really unbelievable. They sent him down for conditioning. That's one of the loopholes.
Yeah.
You can, as long as the guy agrees to, you can go down because he hadn't played in a while. Yeah. So he went down, he played 4 games. He looked sharp, had a 930-something save percentage and all that. Yeah. Then he came up and played one game. I thought he looked just average.
Right.
So, that's where they are. But anyway, so you think it does matter for the goalies, probably not to the players.
Yeah. Again, you can't sustain that. You can't keep going like that at all. Yeah. Really throws them off. Yeah.
Now, here's the final one here. And this one, I think this one's interesting. The Boston Bruins, they've got cap issues, like who doesn't? And they're trying to create some space there. I'm sure they would like to make a move as we move forward. And Craig Smith has struggled this year, a veteran player, been around a long time. Right. Actually played pretty well for him last year, but this season he's just off to a tough start, and they've put him on waivers.
Okay.
Does that matter to his teammates? Do they just say, that's his issue, we move on, or do they, is that a tough day for everybody?
I remember when I got traded. I only got traded once in my career, and I was devastated. Right? It's like, but I realized all the rest of the guys, that's just the way the game goes. That we went and had a beer together and said goodbye, and that was it. And I'm sitting over there crying in the corner, and they're just moving on with life. And then I realized, well, I was the exact same way when other people got traded. I realized that's part of the game, and I need to move forward. I have to concentrate on my game and the team game. So I'm going to say this, and the guys probably like him, and they probably feel bad for him, but they're not going to spend a whole lot of time worrying about it. They've got to get to work and with their own games. Yeah.
This sounds hard, but I'm with you on this. It's been my observation that players do understand that this is a business.
Totally. Yep.
And their thought is, glad it's not me.
Yeah, it's true.
And they're moving on. Same thing with trades. Like, it says, oh man, that's going to disrupt the room.
Yeah.
They move on. Like they, I mean, we've talked about this with injuries.
Yeah.
Next man off. You're dead to the team. When you got a MCL, they're not thinking about you.
Yeah, I agree. I remember the same thing. So I played my first 4 years without missing a game due to injury. Herb had rested me in 2 games, one at the end of my second season, one at the end of my fourth season. And then I ruptured my spleen in my 5th season. And again, I was like, where's everybody? They were just off doing their thing. Yeah, they didn't.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I thought you phrased it correctly. Like, it's not like they don't care about you as a person.
Yeah.
But they care about you a short period of time, and then they're moving on. I mean, they've got their own careers to worry about and what they're trying to accomplish. What's it mean? Your absence. What's it mean if you're a defenseman on the Rangers? That's all you care about.
Yeah, you get more ice time.
Yeah, with Tom's gone, what happens to me? Who's my partner going to be? Is there going to be a shuffle? Is the new guy coming up? Does he do more things than I do?
I remember the other time too when Bobby Nystrom elbowed me in the head and I had to spend the night in the hospital during the playoffs. And 2 young guys, can't remember who it was, took my Jeep. Rightfully so. It was down in the city. We had to practice up in Rye Playland where we practiced. So they took my Jeep and took it up there. And they were players that were called up, so they didn't have a car of their own. So when I showed up at practice the next day, they weren't happy that they saw me. They were upset because now they didn't have a car anymore. I was taking my car back.
Yeah. No, that's certainly right. So,
Yeah.
but speaking about, okay, that's enough of that. But
That's good
speaking
stuff.
of,
I like that though.
feeling bad, Petrangelo was out of the lineup, and not many people knew why. And as it turned out, his 4 or 5 year old daughter had the flu, which turned into encephalitis.
Oh, wow.
And then she lost the ability to walk and some other motor issues, and now she's on full recover. But that cost him like 9 games. It's a very scary situation.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Wow, that is scary.
Yeah, very scary situation. So, those are the kind of things, like sprained ankles and that sort of thing. Not a big deal.
Yeah.
You accept them. That's just the way it is. Life moves on. But when you're facing a crisis situation like that, like I just can't even imagine.
Well, I'm glad the league has really evolved the way it is now too, where they give the players that time off and there's really no questions asked.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they were mean about it before, but it was a little bit more frowned upon way back in the day, like the 70s and 80s. Like, hey, listen, you can't do anything for your daughter, so you should be here playing mentality. I recently was talking to Ulf Nielsen, and we recalled a story where I was in the Ranger locker room my first year in the league, and Phil Esposito was still playing, and I was sitting right beside Anders Hedberg, and his wife was in the hospital giving birth. So he was getting undressed to go to the hospital, and Phil Esposito was sitting across the locker room, and he was an old school guy, great team player, everybody. He was old school. Basically, the idea was nothing you could do at the hospital to help give birth to your child. So he started giving it to Anders in the locker room, and he was mad that Anders was leaving. And I really respected both sides. I get where Phil's coming from. He's that old school guy. It's all about the team. But I also respected Anders because that's his family. His wife's giving birth. So
yeah,
it was quite the scene to watch Phil Esposito give it to. That was my first year in the league too.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like that. I'm kind of an old school guy, but not for those situations.
Your family. I've said this to you before. One of the reasons I'm so impressed by you and respect you so much is your family's everything to you. And if you have to miss work to do it to be the family, when they need you, you're there.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. I mean, those are issues. I mean, you never know what could go wrong in those kinds of situation, and you would never forgive yourself if you weren't there. So, I mean, the league is certainly more enlightened than they were on all kinds of things. They're just more sympathetic about family issues and things that may not be as drastic as that, but there are other things now that I think teams kind of help you, and a lot of times it doesn't even come out.
Yeah, totally.
Like if you've got some issues where counseling is required and stuff, people are all over that kind of stuff now.
Yeah, ever since I started that program with the doctors, they can, if it's substance abuse or other issues, mental health issues, you can go to them. And like I said, it's kept very quiet until it gets to the point where if a player has to be held out of the lineup, then obviously they've got to make an announcement what that's about. So,
yeah, speaking of that, Jacob Vrana here in Detroit is back. He was in the player assistance program, and rightfully, they don't explain why the player is going out. Like, we don't know why Carey Price was out all that time, and we don't need to. I mean, those are usually medical issues and so forth. But I was surprised at how Vrana phrased it, because basically the reporters, as we are apt to do, said, what can you share with us about what went on there? And the idea being is, sometimes sharing is part of what goes on there. Like, that you want to sort of explain, what happened to you and how you got there and so forth. But he said that he was told that he wasn't allowed to say that. So that was explained to him that he wasn't allowed to discuss.
And I don't think that's accurate, though.
No, I don't think that was either, but that's what he said. But he did say, but I wouldn't share anyway. He said, I just don't feel comfortable doing it. So But
yeah. So I'd rather he just say, I just don't feel comfortable, right? I mean,
yeah, I don't know why he said it because I hadn't heard that before ever.
yeah.
So
I think he probably got stuck there and thinking, okay, I'm going to dump this on somebody else instead of saying that I just don't
right,
want to talk, right? Yeah.
yeah. But I will say this. I don't know what went on or any of that stuff, but he was very, 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 very energetic, full of life.
Wow.
I was really kind of struck about how effervescent he was.
Wow.
He just seemed like just happy to be back and looking forward to playing. And I can't tell you when because it's out of my control, but I've been trying to work out, and although he couldn't really give any details on what he'd been doing, but
right.
but anyway, I just
I had a friend of mine that I was doing podcasts with. He's a former Navy, he's a retired Navy SEAL. And he'd had his substance abuse problems, and I hadn't talked to him in a while. And he went ahead and got treatment. And just like you mentioned there, Verona, this guy was a totally different person. He actually went as far as that those psilocybins, the mushrooms and then there's that toad poison he takes. So he really took some drastic steps to change his life. And what a different person he was too. I talked to him on the phone. He was an entirely different person. So.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know. There's been a lot of speculation about how long Verona it'll take him. Now he's only played 2 games this season. He hasn't played in 2 months.
Right.
And everyone was saying, "Well, will it be 2 weeks?" I don't think so, because
Susan's on fire here. She's our roving reporter.
Right.
Seventh player to play. Oh, well, I guess 7 players because they only started last year. It was the first year, right? Is that correct?
Right.
Seattle's first year. Yeah. Interesting. Well,
does that matter?
Well, I've got to say it matters because Susan put it up there. So
yeah. So
that's it. It's an interesting stat, though, right? Because again, they're just getting started. But yeah, then there's all those other 31 teams you got to score against too. I'd like to see how many teams I scored against. 25 goals in 10 years.
Well, it's not more than 25.
There you go. That's true.
So
it's not more than 20. It's not more than 21 because we only had 21 teams when I played. So
yeah. Oh, you were never. That's right. You didn't get to. You were 90. You were gone, right?
Yeah. Imagine that. Like there's 21 teams now. We've got 32, and I never would have imagined that when I was playing.
Well, what's even more crazy is you've been retired 32 years.
No, gosh.
I mean, you weren't even 32 years old when you retired, right?
I must have just turned 32. I think. Well, I can't remember. Yeah, I'd have to look back at that.
Well, what year were you born?
1958.
58. So.
Yeah. So my last year.
You were 32. Yeah, because you were 90, right? You retired in 90.
I think it was the start of the 90-91 season. Like I came to training camp.
Yeah. So you were 32.
Yeah.
So you've now, you've been away from the game.
Yeah.
Longer than you had been alive.
Yeah, I know. And that's interesting. You don't realize when you're playing the game, that's hard to figure that that's the way it's going to be in life. But it happens to every player. It's maybe Gordie Howe is an exception, but
yeah. Well, it's hard to believe. Yeah, I mean, it just seems like you were, playing and you just became an agent. I remember, us talking.
That's right. I remember that too.
You had become an agent, and you were fired up about that too.
I was, yes. Because it's funny. I really didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew my career was coming to an end, but I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. And then I'd gone. I was out in L.A. and Larry Rouse, former agent that I was good friends with, he's passed away now, had called me and said, "Tom, why don't you go out to New York here, spend the weekend? We'll talk about you becoming an agent." And after sitting with him, I really like, wow, this is really what I want to do. In fact, we were going to work together. But then on the flight back from New York to LA, I thought, like, why am I going to work for somebody else? Especially, I still was getting paid by the Kings. There's a buyout, so I had an income coming in. So yeah, it was fun. I was fired up. Yeah.
Did you end up making more as an agent than you did as a player?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. The most I ever made, the highest salary I ever had as a player was I think $310,000 to $330,000 last year, and things were going pretty well there for the agent business. Yeah.
That was. But at the end, you were less fired up about it.
Yeah, it was great. I had a 22-year run with it. The recruiting process, when I first started recruiting, there really wasn't many agents. I think there was probably 20 or 30 agents at the time. So like Brian Berard, for example, was going to be the first overall pick in the draft, and I didn't have to start recruiting him until he was like 16 years old. But then as the agent business got going and there was more money involved, the more agents were involved, and it become the recruiting process was just like we had to recruit kids when they're 12 or 13 years old. Agents were buying the kids cars and all this stuff, and so yeah, I love doing the agent business. I love working with the players, negotiating contracts and everything. But you've got to recruit, and that's just wasn't what I wanted to do anymore.
Yeah, that's the worst aspect of that job. Is the recruiting.
It's funny. There was a Cam Fowler was playing in the Detroit area there, and a former player, I can't remember his name, he was coaching, assistant coach. He says, "Tom, you got to come out and see this kid." But he was only like 13 years old at the time, I think, 13 or 14. So I said, all right, really is against what, I'd gotten a relationship with him a little bit. So I said, okay, I'll come out there, excuse me, and see him. And I was sitting in the rink one day, and Steve Olczyk was walking by. We knew each other a little bit. And he looked at me, he goes, he knew the way I felt about the recruiting process. And he looked at me and goes, "What the F are you doing here?" And it made me kind of realize, what am I doing? I got up and I left right away. Like I just, to recruit kids who are 13 just wasn't something I wanted to do. So
yeah, no, that's and that happened too. I remember when colleges started getting commitments from kids at an earlier age, and it's just crazy. It's crazy. Like,
here's a good question by Barry Shelley here. Did you get paid up front as agent? Did you get money each time the player got paid? Player may not have winning reports and Stanley Cup. So no, you only get paid when the player gets paid. So I would bill every year at Christmas time and then in April. So that the two sides. Now they just did different ways. They did it once a month or whatever. That's the way I chose to do it. But that was I remember during the lockout there, we lost the 04-05 season. That meant that I went for 20 months without getting paid. So that was interesting times. And Bob Goodnow had gotten his way. We would have gotten another season too. He was going to shut it down again. So I remember that was like, okay, let's get this thing done. So again, I got build my players in April. Then we missed the full next season. So I wouldn't be able to bill again until the following Christmas time. So yeah, it was tense times.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I wouldn't want you to name names or anything, but did you ever have trouble getting money from your clients?
It was more not saying that they wouldn't pay it. It was more them just being lazy, like I was.
Disorganized.
Yeah, just lazy. I say, I'll get to it tomorrow, and they don't think it's a big deal. Meanwhile, you've got bills to pay, and you're trying to be careful not to pressure them too much. Now, one of the good things that the Player Association did, they started a program where they had a standard player agent contract. So it was a contract between the agent and the player, excuse me, and you could not change the language on that contract. It was the way it was, and it read very clearly that there's no disputing if the agent negotiated a contract, and you had to get that contract signed every time you did a new contract for the player. You had to get that new standard player agent contract signed, and it very, very strict. It was said, listen, you've got to pay the agent. If he does the work for him, you've got to pay him. So it's a two-way street. It was, the player was required to pay. So when we talked about this before, when I see cases like, Jack Eichel, for example, he'd had one agent negotiate the contract for him, and then he fired that agent. And I'm assuming that agent was smart enough to get that contract signed. If he wasn't, the player didn't have to pay. But if he'd signed that contract, then Jack Eichel still has to pay him his money, but now he's hired a new agent. So either he's going to pay twice or he worked out some kind of a settlement. And I don't think one of the things too, they didn't allow it to be changed in any way or do some kind of a buyout because they didn't want to change the precedent or set a new precedent for that contract. So interesting to see what happened with Eichel and his former agent.
Yeah. Yeah. The Washington Capitals, I want to talk about them other than Ovechkin as well, is, they won 6 out of 7 now. And, Wilson and Backstrom are both close to coming back. I don't think they came back last night, did they?
I don't think they did, no.
Because I think they're close. Both of them are getting back. Although I don't think the Capitals have room for Backstrom. I think they're going to have to make a deal.
Okay.
So we probably won't see him till after the holiday, I would guess.
How about the Rangers? 7 in a row now, right? Wow.
Yeah, that's that's big, and considering how poorly they were playing.
Yeah.
That gets them back in, and now the Devils are struggling. So.
Yeah. But you know what? I watched them play. They lost to the Rangers in overtime, and they're still playing well. And I haven't seen all their games recently, some of the ones they've lost. But they're still a good hockey team. At least they were playing like a good hockey team when they lost to the Rangers. But
yeah, but Carolina, I think, is only 2 back of them now. They've kind of lost their momentum a little bit.
Yeah, but nobody would have. We never would have picked them to make the playoffs, did we? The Devils?
No. I think everyone thought they were improved though. But
Right.
I think I think it's a big deal if they slip out of first place because you know I think it's going to affect them mentally
Yeah.
more than
Yeah.
it would a team that
Yeah.
has
They're
been
a
there
young,
before.
very young team. Yeah. Young
Yeah, I
team.
mean, I think they've missed the playoffs 9 out of 10 years.
So it is. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And
Like your Detroit Lions too. How about them? Oh man.
yeah, it's impressive. It was a big win over the Jets, and they their offense has been good the entire year. Even when they were 1-6, they had a good offense, but
Yeah.
their defense has really played well during this streak.
Right.
And they got a shot now. They've got a reasonable shot to make the playoffs. And like if they win their next game and two other teams lose, which are both possible,
Right.
they would actually then be in a playoff position at 8-7 with 2 games to
It's
go.
Seattle and the Jets are battling, right? Is that who they're battling?
No, I think they're in. I don't think it's Seattle in the Jets.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, it was a very impressive performance. That winning touchdown too.
Yeah.
I love those kind of plays. The kind of misdirection where the tight end stays in the block and then he releases and goes to the left and there's nobody by him, and so he catches the ball and then runs 60 yards. And the other thing about that play is they had thrown it to him the time before.
Right.
And
on top of things here, did you see the end of that game? They had 3 timeouts. The Jets had 3 timeouts, and they didn't stop the clock until there was 19 seconds. They didn't use a timeout until there was 19 seconds left in the game. So it's like, what are you waiting for?
Yeah,
and that's the Northern Michigan coach too.
Yep.
Northern Michigan guy. Oh, you see that? No, we did not have a cooking show yesterday for the first time in a long time. He wrote with my grandson, my little dog Maverick, warrior. He so cute. He pees every time he sees his grandpa, right in my foot.
Well, that's good. As long as it's outside, that's great.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, I have to go outside and meet him. Yeah, I can't let him come in the house because he's going to pee. It's actually very cute. How's your new addition to the family?
My grandson.
Yes.
Oh, he's doing great. They're less of a hassle at this age. Because mostly they just sleep. So we'll finally get to have it probably over the holidays when he's here. I'm sure we'll get a little better idea of what his personality is going to be like.
Now, will they come and stay there with you?
Oh yeah, they'll be. We split. I mean, everyone will be home. So, one of my daughters lives, as my wife points out, because she walks there constantly, 2,000 steps away. She lives almost a mile or something like that.
Nice.
But anyway, some of my family will stay there, and then the rest will stay here at our house. So, and then we'll all be. But we're celebrating Christmas, as I mentioned before, on actually New Year's Eve, because this is when we could get everybody in. We did. We did all this in early November, trying to figure out who can get what time off and all that kind of stuff. So, and so we'll have Christmas dinner on that day, and we'll open all of our presents in the morning, just like as if it was Christmas day. So,
see, we just exchange bottles of tequila now.
So
no more gifts. It's just bottles of tequila. That's our gifts to each other.
Yeah, I think that's kind of sad, actually. But
seriously,
I guess that works for you. But So, but the difference is you don't have a herd of kids that all adults. So you're just adults. So totally. I guess that's a good way to do it. So
just the dog, just Maverick. That's all.
So But so everybody just passes out a different brand, so you end up with all 3 brands. Is that how it works?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
We love it because we always try to move it. Now we moved it in the past to have it on a Sunday, which everyone was closer, and now this Christmas is going to be on Sunday anyways because we want to watch the football game. So.
Yeah. So you'll actually get together on Christmas Day.
Yes, we'll get together Christmas Day. Yep. My youngest son and his girlfriend, they'll be in Ohio with her family. Right. But my oldest son Shane and their dog Maverick and his wife Leah, they'll all be here. So we have our traditions, the same meal every Thanksgiving and every Christmas. It's the same. I have the shrimp cocktails and all that good stuff.
Well, we got football this Christmas.
Yeah,
the NFL is on, so that'll be good because before we only had the NBA.
That's right. Yeah.
To watch. So Yeah, it's interesting. When I was a kid, like I wasn't a big NBA fan, certainly. But I always look forward to that because, at noon on Christmas Day, what's there left to do? You've opened the gift.
I know.
You look forward to that game.
Yeah,
It's always a big deal. And it seemed like the Knicks always played in that game.
That's right too. That's right. Yeah.
So, I mean,
that's why we moved ours to a Sunday, whichever one was closer to Christmas. So we now watch football. But today, this week, it's
So I like. There was all. It seems to me, wasn't there the blue gray game or north south game? There's a college game used to be on too on Christmas Day. I don't know if it still is, but I'll actually be in Chicago on Christmas because my sons and his wife they have the 4 kids, so we'll go for opening of gifts in their family thing. So
now all the kids still believe in Santa Claus?
I don't even know in that household whether they ever believed in Santa.
Really?
I can't remember how it all divides. I think there's one house where there's a Santa going on, and the other where they just didn't even
Is that right?
deal with that. So
I can't remember how old I was when I finally realized Santa wasn't real. I believed for quite a while. I believed.
Yeah, did you? Yeah.
I still believe in Santa Claus.
Yeah.
I love Christmas.
Good for you. There's actually a Christmas movie that's on Netflix where it's an adult male who's got a new girlfriend and he believes in Santa, and it causes difficulty in the relationship.
That's good.
Yeah,
I have a hard time with relationships. So
When it usually has nothing to do with Christmas. That is for sure. But getting back to the hockey world too. It's interesting. It seems like this season has been a series of teams on winning and losing streaks.
That's right.
Because the Penguins had a big streak, and then they finally got beat. I think it was last night, even by Carolina, who's on a point streak of their own.
Right.
And then we had the Devils winning all those games. Now they're on a losing streak. We had the Rangers that were struggling. Now they're on a winning streak. We had the Capitals who were struggling, and now they've won, as I said, 6 out of 7. The Red Wings were playing really well. Now they've lost 5 in a row. We've just kind of had this. It's kind of a series of streaks and slumps. That's kind of getting this down. And last week the Red Wings were in 3rd place in the Atlantic Division, and now they're only 2 points out of last place in the Atlantic.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's a drop, yeah.
So
you can see why it happens too, because to win in the National Hockey League, you really have to pay attention to the details, right? So you get everybody doing all the little things right, and then you start your winning streak. But then as the winning streak goes along, it's human nature to kind of say, okay, I'll cheat a little bit on this play. I won't tip the puck out of the offensive zone or out of the defensive zone. I'll try to carry it, and then it gets picked off, and all of a sudden you got guys that are now making a bunch of mistakes, and then you lose your confidence, you start losing hockey games. So it's really interesting to watch how it happens, and it's pretty predictable, really, that you're not going to continue on a winning streak forever because now you start taking those little mistakes.
Yeah. Let me ask you this too. This is another issue that's come with Detroit, but this is not the only team dealing with this. And the Red Wings are blocking more shots this season. Derek Lalonde is one of those guys. It's sort of like a Tortorella thing. Like he's always connected to shot blocking, but he just wants to be harder to play against. But part of that is blocking shots.
Sure.
If you're blocking shots, you're not allowing pucks to get to the net. And the Red Wings have blocked a lot more shots, but they've had a lot more injuries. I mean, they've had, for example, Bertuzzi has had 2 different surgeries from block shots. He's now currently out. Just the other day, it turned out fortunate. We still don't know the extent of the injury, so it could be broken. But Larkin did not. Whatever happened, he didn't require any surgery, and he's playing again. Although, it's pretty clear he's not himself.
What body part did they hurt? Hands?
Hands on their black shots. Soderblom missed a month when he got his in the leg. Zadina is out for 2 months. He broke a bone in his leg as well. They've had 6 incidents and 5 with 5 different players. Bertuzzi's been twice. And Bob Duff, my colleague, wrote a story where he just said, hey, is this really a good idea? Because, how much has it helped them? And yet they've had, a lot more injuries of these type than before. And, do you want your stars blocking shots is the key, is the question.
Yes, but they need to wear better equipment. Like the gloves they wear now, for example. I'm shocked that you'll get more injuries.
Yeah.
Those tiny little gloves. We wore the big gloves that halfway up the elbow. Guys like a Craig Ludwig, for example, that was blocking shots. He adjusted his shin pads so that he could block more shots. I just think they're kind of, if they're saying, okay, we want you to block shots, it's the equipment that you're putting on. The equipment's there to be, it's the proper equipment.
Well, I mean, I guess, but the question is, do you want Connor McDavid blocking shots? Would you have wanted Wayne Gretzky blocking shots? Would you want Mario Lemieux blocking shots?
Yeah.
I
guess we put it that way. Yeah.
I mean, it is interesting that the NFL goes out of its way. The NFL understands. It's a shame, but there's truth to this. That in the NFL, there's only like 25 or 30 guys that are real separators. Like it's pretty clear who they are, and then everyone else seems to be interchangeable. Every year, the roster changes so dramatically. All the pieces, and not just you would. Normally you would expect, okay, the reserves to change, but a lot of the starters change.
That's true.
From year to year in the NFL.
Yeah,
but in the NHL, that's really not the case, and yet the NFL really protects, like you can't touch the quarterback anymore.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it is a smart move. You look back at some of the injuries, they used to get banged around before, especially the quarterback.
Right.
Yeah, they've made it really clear that's just not happening anymore.
No, we're not going to do that. But we don't protect the stars in the NHL, and
I guess you're right. I think the idea is, at least it was supposed to be, they were self-protected. The teammates would protect, like Wayne Gretzky. If somebody hit Wayne Gretzky, somebody was coming after you, right? That was, you knew.
Yeah, but if you're getting hurt by a block shot, that's the point here.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we're doing that. I know the answer to this, but just because it was considered kind of the game of the century. But did you watch the World Cup final in soccer?
I missed it. No, I rearranged my sock drawer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, it was an incredible game for those of you who are.
And Messi finally won a championship.
Yeah, he did. But it was like, it was alive on social media, like in terms of, there was a lot of, a lot of hockey fans are soccer fans too, for whatever reason. I think, a lot of European fans, Canadian fans are soccer fans as well. But it was a pretty incredible game.
Nice. Argentina against who?
France.
Oh, France. That's right.
Yeah, it was just a crazy game. So and the other thing too is I was struck by is, in the U.S. and the NHL, people turn their nose up at shootouts, but here's this incredible game that had to be decided by penalties, and the tension was just dripping off those shots. Like it was so, and it's so much bigger. Like I don't know what the exact number was, but something like 3 billion people or something watch the World Cup of soccer.
Susan's making a comment here that it's a horrible way to end the championship or have a championship with a shootout. I don't think so. I kind of disagree on that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've had this discussion with Igor Larionov because I used to feel that way too. And right. Igor, he thought, Igor believed strongly that we should get rid of the playoff system in the NHL because he said it takes away from the skill and it becomes the fatigue. He said they call it endurance. He said, but it's really you're exhausted. He said the team that's less exhausted usually wins.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's part of the lore of the Stanley Cup.
Well, I think so too.
Yeah.
But I don't want to argue like, people called that the greatest game ever, and people in Europe did not complain at all about the shootout. Yeah. It's just us in America who really don't kind of understand it.
But I think there's a lot of tension. Like having the shootouts like that, I love.
Oh that. Yeah. Like it was incredible. My son played, and he was a shootout taker.
Oh, okay.
In fact, in all the years he played, he never missed one.
Oh wow.
It's not like he played pro or anything, but I'm just saying, when he was played travel and youth and all that, he always got the ball in. But just the tension in those two, when you're on the sidelines and you're waiting, and the guys, and they go and they set that ball up trying to perfectly,
right.
And then the goalie's got to guess, and
Right.
You
And it's
know?
just a guess game too, right? You really
It is
can't.
just
Yeah.
total guess.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I think they sort of in their mind have a little bit of a book, but you're still guessing.
Yeah. Totally.
You know, you're just guessing. But you know, a lot of sports is guess.
Oh,
You know,
totally. Yeah. Yeah.
you know. So I mean, you're guessing. A baseball players, you're guessing fastball or breaking pitch.
Yeah. Totally.
You know, off speed or 100 miles an hour. You know, you got to guess. So
Definitely.
that's all that. But I thought it was an incredible soccer game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, we appreciate everyone tuning in for mostly hockey, a little bit of Christmas talk, and just a little teensy bit of soccer. But we'll be back on hockey on Wednesday, and if you want to read me, I'm at DetroitHockeyNow.com.
Everybody have a great day. We'll see you on Wednesday.